however lacking in addition to expose revealingly about the not yet mentioned El Niño phenomenon, which complementary very important factor still most effectively determinant at the explicit definition of this bold exposition. Beginning for if is ignored, to point that it has a considerable existential phenomenon, never for certain well defined, and provocative of diverse terrestrial life as extreme environmental imbalances, as they can be possible earthquakes, sickly epidemics, violent swell, or sequakes, incomprehensible climatic disturbances, hurricanes, etc., whose manifestation is unpredictable, and although its origin causes are totally unknown, here also and usually that will be revealed that in fact such remarkable effects mean and why incredible basic cause they are logically produced, because in this respect, known it must to be, that all these so unhinging effects are incredibly provoked by, that it certainly well you can consider as with that in compared similarity to the living beings, or rather humans is a baby or niño in Spanish language in intern process of uterine gestation and evolutionary development, but that in this case its integral quality is of incandescent energy matter, magma, or lava, and the which it is concentrately content in the interior whole uterus of the earth planet mother, who as already it must be known in fact also incredibly constitutes a superior astronomic stellar being with specific considerable feminine characteristic, seeming to livings because we are her product, and whose origin more consequent confirmation is also explained with the already here known fact, that in the last past relativity's event almost 320 years ago, the Earth at the same time of, to have liberated by all its volcanic conduits another equal incandescent product that at the same time had been acquired and achieved before in other previous 6,600 years. Event and cycle and almost 13,320 to date, also absorbed another great proportion of the distorted integral existential evolution in the terrestrial surface, or what same is practically to swallow and to clean the life's dirtiest atmosphere, and to only leave the most useful thing and of more positive natural value, for this way in consequence to have begun this another new 6 millennial cycle, with a vestal natural atmosphere, during the one which the earth it was in its interior purifierly retransforming such one absorbed integral product of cycles and superior relative anterior eventuality. Further also for the same, to have achieved a bigger acquired energy concentrate assimilation of its permanent relation and constant reflection with and from the sun, for so inclusive to have made, that for such considerable internal refination process, came the moment that from such product it was derived wit and juicy, a residual dense black color product, whose now is known as petroleum, that precisely by to have of supposed way discovered, we have using to satisfy the diverse survival necessities, and that by the fact of the niño or baby's bigger assimilative development is because again, it has brought as consequence then since some time ago, conform this one bigger energetic solar assimilation and calorific volume has achieved, and in relation with the known relativity system, this has to have been causing in the surface, its effects behind, and exactly at the present time more than ever is experiencing evident restlessness of its already also next and necessary imminent or conceptive expulsive score or childbirth, that also unusually such an enormous expired relativity as planet comes to cause with its so powerful magnetic attraction as force of the less negative than her, for as most common is for all volcanic conducts to expose it to the surface, and an already exposed consequence, which fertilizer to be good for the best reproducer evolution in the new 6 millennial cultural cycle of the natural life's atmosphere. If not is that of another way, it could be like different most unusual score's choice, like conclusive possible is to explain to a very congruent logic way, remaining so of perfect explicitly way justified, not only the ignored real causes of current global warming and its increasing effectiveness, but also with respect to the different strange phenomenal environmental, as living beings, and especially humans, who with this, even we all remain relatively free of whole responsibility to have it provoked, for so to understand, that despite our much mistaken cultural survivor application development, this one has only been partly for propitiate a bigger effective increase, especially in our usual environment, and which is not possible in any way contain, like neither avoid the maximum reaching of its highlights possible consequences, the which however, can even be fully pre-noted. Because with everything before exposed and known, it is possible to imagine and detailedly to describe, which will be the phenomenon's general consistency, so much of effective previous general consequences to the event's most intense climax of astral and planetary relation, that also are constituted in tests of certain support of this exposition, like during the most climatic culmination and later consequent state to this. Because already knowing that its objectivity has been conceived to make in the planets with life, the already told regeneration of negative states, like they are basically coldness and magnetism, as worn away during the 6 millennial cycle of incessant reflexive warmth under the sun, but even until to execute superficially with the general living production in all built urban and environmental concept, as well as population of all classes of beings, which periodic systematic purification for better favorable planet's lingering cultural conservation, in its objective task of life's natural creation and recreation, until its maximum consequences of perfectible integral evolution dominantly positive, and until for the same thing, arrives the time in that becomes already impossible to make it, for this way to extinguish, and definitively to be for it sterilized, although not by that reason in some way neither to be entirely destroyed, but only to be removed of the third privileged special place for such a honorable privilege, and to be relegated in the immediate fourth place, like now exactly, for the same copies Mars, although for it will lack it to lots a lot of time more, of prolonged beings and life's recreation, although for the time is going to happen this fleeting pause, that this trembler phenomenon will cause with its old more narrow intense climatic relativity, and indispensable regeneration, whose description of possible pre-effects, calculating the worst, these they will be worse than those up to now we have been experiencing in all conceivable ways of every time bigger intensity, from the last passings 6 decades. In that it has been meant the state of best human cultural survival evolution and ignored vicious general contamination, like industrially applied, etc., but also in their general attitude and revealed strange behavior of incomprehensible decomposition very different to that considered normal, whose although justified it is for the modernization, it is this way masked as relative madness, whose with the biggest approach of the negative planet same distortion or influence, and relative habitual atmospheric conditions in big cities, without any doubts it will cause a bigger one and worst collective madness, of more unbridling and world headstrongly and frequent regional and international conflict. Because very possible is that the world's natural production nutrition, it diminishes drastically, and also drinking water be scarce, in a climate of every time, bigger natural destruction for every time bigger meteors and frequent unpredictable razor earthquakes in all place, in that they will also open up every time more big extensive and deep cracks earthly, and enormous collapses of mounts and mountains like multitudinous burnings etc. For then to make possible those also prospective feeble epidemic of quick annihilating mortal effect, for the which the humanity without to know it has mistakenly predisposed, for this way without more remedy to have to support, and to assimilate all painful consequence in the best possible way to the general reach, until finally the biggest climatic extraplanetary negative effectiveness, in a convulsive and dark cold ambient of influential incomprehensible fear, with a sun for the same effectively turn off, with a deafening species of bestial harrowing bellow, to cause and it consumes the expulsion of the internucleic incandescent product or terrestrial baby, that this time surely will be made for all the already actually active, renovated, or new volcanic conduits of all place and region in the world's surface, including the marine glass, also for the same violently unhinged and provocative of the biggest seaquakes in extensive terrestrial internment and devastating vegetable and urban destruction, but simultaneously to be made an incredible instantaneous terrestrial devouring of thousands of world's cities and urban communities including beings, for at once close all those places again, being healed as if something had not existed more than the concealing mistreated vegetation or relative sterile surface and counted dispersed surviving beings, still shocked for the impressive emotional impact and unforgettable terror of such an indescribable experience, for in consequence to happen and expectant come, with even prevalent fear to suffer new unpredictable reprisals on behalf of something totally unknown, that it makes to think, for so negative environmental prevailing conditions, all that is of diabolical character. For this way later of continuing recovering the common tranquility, and difficultly to think of trying to redo their objective one survival beginning from zero, in a natural totally new and vestal atmosphere, with the resources willing to the reach, for again also to begin build the incipient housings to still be protected of those somber and cold climatic environmental conditions, for further incredible surprise, little time later. The overwhelmed people will be threatened by what a premonition is of plentiful snowy, that for many days and nights they will remain without truce accumulating icy matter, especially relative in the poles and near hemispheric world parts, culminating as what it is an intense glaciation which also obliged complementary process of already told objective periodic systematic reprovision of terrestrial planetary coldness. Then it will more even make difficult the living of human survivors, that they have to experience similar conditions before so also many times equal experience by dozens of thousands of years ago for the survivors of other passing civilized generations, and also like for hundreds of thousands for the most original and incipient human specimen, which heroic basic precursors of the evolution and civilized more comfortable living way of future terrestrial human generations, like it is now the current one, to point of concluding one more stage of civilized evolution, that with this knowledge and full conscience we should with defiant decision to face all event, knowing that all this will also happen and will come better times for all.